they're A, not in position, but B, they're very, very low. So you dive on top and everything, theoretically is going to go down with the Magmadon splashing on top. Yes, absolutely. All right, so it's the Stormgate show match. Dreamhack Atlanta finally, I know I'm a little late on it, I'm sorry, but we're going to take a look at this new RTS and most importantly, the first public sets of complete games that we've been able to take a look at. Yeah, there have been snapshots and snippets, and some of this has been on my channel before. I got a whole backlog of games from earlier alphas that I've cast, but this is the first time that we can actually take a look at what happens. Of course, 4 maps in the map pool right now. And the cool thing about all these is that they are all very different. They're exploring different ideas. But game 1 here of MaNa and TLO, winner plays Moon, and we're on Secluded Grove. I don't know. Actually, we're just gonna remove my. I'm gonna put my webcam up north. I think that's probably a. There we go. MaNa and TLO on Secluded Grove in the upper right. It's MaNa in the bottom left. TLO playing the Vanguard. TLO playing the humans. The people that are, well, the more standard, of course. MaNa is playing Infernals on the north side, and already we see here this is a very different RTS from what people might be used to. There are, well, a bunch of stuff on the map. So as right now we see Vanguard, they spawn with a dog. It's called a scout. It has vision. You spawn with it early on, and it lets you see what's happening. So TLO's getting a good idea of map control as MaNa goes for really what looks like an early expand build. It has seemed that Infernals can get away with this for the most part. There's not a ton of pressure on the map early unless it's a proxy, and because of how the economy scales here for both, really, for every faction, it doesn't really seem all that great. So we're going to see a Fiend or a Brute get popped out earlier, immediately turn into Fiends. And yes, you may notice that these Fiends are losing some HP over time, but they can chase the dog down. They're denying scouting from TLO, which is important. As we talk about any sort of RTS game, you want to deny as much scouting as possible. But what's interesting about this, and this is very different from previous iterations, is that the focus on creep camps is not nearly as intense as it otherwise was. This bit of a Fiend harass here coming in. Realistically, this shouldn't get a ton done. Fiends don't have a ton of HP. You can repair, you can overcharge. You really shouldn't lose a Bob, but TLO not quite handling this as well as he should have. Now he pops the overcharge, but it's only after damage has happened. So now, TLO, by the way, we talked about this overcharge. Overcharge is that nice electric thing that's around the Bobs. And what that does is it means they take far less damage. They have a lot more armor. They move, and they attack a lot faster. They don't have a move speed buff. What you'll notice here as we watch this is that a lot of buffs are kind of reused. We can see here that this is overcharged. You see the electricity crackling around. You'll also see that if MaNa or TLO decide to take a speed camp, and that makes them faster, but it doesn't give the other buffs. So again, this game, this build is the first beta they've had. It was a couple weeks in. So obviously some things are not going to be there just yet. But anyway, we're not seeing as much focus on camps as you might otherwise expect. Previous versions, you had tons of focus. There was vision camps. There was a speed camp in the middle of the map on another map that was so important. In fact, we saw Parting in particular really iterating on this idea where he would pull Bobs early to repair the scouts to make sure that you can take that down. But instead, MaNa, he gets his natural up. He's eventually going to take the vision camp because it's really nice to get this. It gives you vision really over your entire core 3 base area. Yes, your opponent can try to kill it, but you'll know what's happening. And then maybe a rotation over to the life camp. There's a healing aura camp on the north side that you can get and get a little bit of a Luminite, a little bit of money for that as well. But for now, it seems like more than anything else, it's just going to be aggression coming out of MaNa here. He's got a ton of brutes. It's a double vault opening, of course. Vaults are, if you want to think in StarCraft terms, vaults are your barracks. You have conclaves, and those aren't really, I guess there's a kind of your factories. It's a little bit different when we talk about Vanguard. But anyways, with 3 brutes here, this is a decent amount. It's only a single Lancer, and they do fairly well. That's a nice round, but Fiends are going to get most out of it. Now, when we talk about Lancers, it's important to talk about that not only are they tanky, not only are they strong, decently strong units, they do damage in a box in front of them. So if you're TLO here, you really want to get things lined up appropriately. You really want to get those AoE shots down. But behind this, TLO is not going for Lancers. Those are stabilizing units. In the early game, behind this, he's got Hedgehogs on the way. One factory, very exposed though. I'm not a big fan of the SimCity here. He actually can't repair it appropriately, and there's no turret behind. So this first factory, or this factory in the natural, seems like it's just going to go down, and you need more than a single hog. You need more than a second hedgehog. You want to get up to 6. You want to get up to 8 of them, because while the hedgehogs are very powerful, they have infinite kiteability for the most part, although they're still going to get trapped here. This is not good for TLO at all. Maybe he holds on the master pair, but he is taking... That's another dead hedgehog. He's taking so much damage. But the key thing about this... The key thing about these hedgehogs is they fire 4 rockets at a time. They have to rearm. So you want 6 or 8 of them, maybe even a couple more, and you just kite back. You spend their shots, you get damage done, you run back away a little bit, you get the damage. You really, it keeps the Infernal player from really moving on the map at all. You really do a good job of poking at them, of forcing turrets down early, of making them take the more defensive third base maybe. Really not making it easy for the Infernal to... I really, the big problem is getting that second therium spot. So we can see this cluster of minerals on the right side. TLO's, there we go, now we can see it. That's effectively gas in StarCraft. It's your tech, it's your tech supply, really. And when we talk about what an Infernal player wants to get to into the mid game, they need a ton of therium to get things like magmadons, to get things, yeah, like magmadons, and to get things like totally blanking on the name. It's been a month since I've played. Not Thrall. Are they Thralls? Shooty boys. To get things like that up on the map, it does require a significant amount of therium. And again, the magmadons are the big thing. Lots of therium, not as much luminite. So ideally here, and TLO has been able to get away with it, you take that somewhat linear third base. Because the triangular third, you can see kind of on the 1 o'clock side of the map, is a bit of a run by here. Attempted nice block there out of TLO, but he does force another overcharge out. And overcharges, not only are they cooldown based, they do cost energy out there of the command post that we can see. And that's not the biggest deal right now, because you don't have a ton of things to spend energy on. If you upgrade your command post to tier 2, you can shoot a dog out, shoot a scanner out that has some HP that times out eventually, that you can shoot out that can get taken down. But not a ton. Not a ton of uses for energy at the moment. Even still, these are resources that you have to worry about. Talking about resources, these shroud stones, these turrets that MaNa has built up, you may notice a purple bar beneath them. These are actually a really cool idea, where not only do they go, and now finally the hedgehog counts out, but at this point the shroud has been pushed forward. We have meat farms up elsewhere on the map. We have shroud stones up here. We're starting to see gaunts. That's the word. We're starting to see those get on up. All of this means that the timing of the cars of these hedgehogs is not really as powerful as it once was. Even still, as we talk about this, I had something to say. Regardless, we will see the chickens. A little bit of attempted creep jacking, more than anything else. But the magmadons, again, they're expensive, but they do such a good job. If you can get them on top of the army, they do a mini stun. They do every third attack, I think it is. They do splash damage. But they do get shredded by hedgehogs. So if you cannot get on top of them, it does become difficult. It does become rather painful, and we can see that right now. They're getting absolutely shredded, but just sitting there on the shroud, eating. Oh, there we go. You never see this happen. I love what MaNa is doing here. So not only do the magmadons have a charge ability, they also have the ability to go and eat the fell hogs. Those uncontrollable units outside of the meat farms. You can see right there. They're running forward and they're getting knocked out. MaNa can't control them, but specifically with the Weaver and the magmadon, he can eat them and get, I think it's 50% of his white health left. Oh, that's a great catch as well. Anyways, because it's going to become relevant pretty quickly, we talk about Shroud Stones. That purple energy is Animus. That's the spell casting power out of the Infernal players. And what it means is you can cast a couple spells. The big one here we're going to see in this next fight is something called Infest. It does damage over time, and any units that die while under the effect of it, well, what's going to happen? They're going to spawn fiends on top of them. It really snowballs fights in a significant way. As we can see, MaNa here, he's got a Lancer in that Sentinel post. He's trying to get as much damage as possible, as much defense as possible. And he's doing a good job of holding on for the time being. In fact, one Magmadon seems like it is going to get targeted down. And yeah, MaNa's going to have to back up for the time being. This is how a lot of the games go. You have the Vanguard player. I keep wanting to say Protectorate for some reason. You have the Vanguard player going forward and attacking across the map and putting on a ton of pressure on the map up until the point where you got about 8 to 10 gaunts. Ideally, when you get the gaunt upgrade, then you can move on the map. Magmadons allow you to start putting waves and waves into the Vanguard player while they take the map behind it. And this is where it gets a little bit difficult. Now the feeds are out. We see, of course, The Gaunts, they're kiting away as much as we can. TLO is hiding that a little bit, but now the Sentinel post is gone. That was a really important part of this fight. It just splash damage, it bounces around. Not as nice. We'll talk about command post in a second. Not quite as nice as putting an Exo in it, for example, but still solid. But now that's gone. That means the third base is going to go down. Yes, we have Vulcans on the field. That's a ton of splash damage. And if TLO had the time to go, if TLO had the time to get up to 5 Vulcans maybe, or get up to Atlas or something, we'd say, hey, this is great. But the problem right now is TLO can barely hold on to his third base. MaNa's got his fourth base on the way. We can see it's not done yet, but he's got the fourth base at the 1 o'clock-ish position. He's got 2 Therium mines going, or 3 Therium mines going, excuse me. He's going to have 4 Luminite patches going. And then I think eventually we're going to see him take the middle of the map. We're going to see him take the secluded grove that is part of the name. And this is actually super powerful. And this is one of the reasons why Infernals can be so strong on this map, at least in this patch, on this version of the beta. Because once you establish map control, you start putting waves and waves and harvesting that Animus to get yourself into a Flayed Dragon, or get more Infests, or drop a Shroud Stone, which is not used all that much because it has to be very close to other Shroud Stones, but Infest is global. And, well, you can go and you can run a dragon across the map. That also can be, I guess, considered global. Anyways, you have all these abilities, so you run waves in, you kill things off, you get more Animus, eventually you get that Flayed Dragon. As we see now, MaNa has taken in the middle of the map, and this is double Luminite, it's double Therium, it's so much money that allows MaNa to really start to take the lead. It's still rough to take the fight into a bunch of Vulcans. They do this line of damage into your pretty squishy army, especially when we talk about the Gaunts that were very changed. But it doesn't seem like it's going to matter too much right now. Good dashes in, getting damage done. We do have the Lancer upgrade, and what that means is when they take damage, they get tankier, they attack faster. So for now, things aren't dying. We can see this army here fighting back and forth. MaNa, again, TLO seems to be stabilizing, but a lot of these units are getting pretty low on HP, and we saw again that Infest gets dropped. So TLO doesn't want to fight anymore. He's afraid of fighting right now because, again, that Infest can snowball things so much. It's damage over time, and then if you just get a bunch of Fiends on top of your army, it becomes very painful. So it gets cast again, and the army is low. We don't have Medtechs. That's another key component of this army, or not Medtechs, the healing units. I forget what they're called. We don't have those. They're not really available right now that would allow you to purge debuffs if you get up to a high enough level of the upgrade to keep the Vulcans alive, to keep the Lancers alive. And that's a big difference. If you're able to go and make that happen, if you're able to add that longevity to your army, suddenly TLO would be in a marginally better spot. But remember, he's only mining on 2 Therium patches, so his economy's not incredible, and he doesn't have the ability to really repair. So another Infest goes down. That's just going to pop a lot of the Vulcans. They're going to go down. And yes, there's enough splash damage right now where it's not really we're not seeing the massive Fiend snowball, but the run by, that should do a whole host of work here. TLO doesn't have a natural anymore. Technically, he's got the buildings, but he's going to lose 12, maybe even a couple more. Don't know how many Bobs there were, but he's going to lose everything. And now there's no anti-air. There's a single Spriggan in the sky. They don't do a ton of damage. They really, really don't, but Vulcans don't shoot up. Lancers don't shoot up. Now, finally, we have the healers in, but Dr. Dario's dead. All really flows down from that early game where one factory went down super early. It didn't have the Hedgehog count early enough to get the pressure on. That really did make the difference. Oh, now we're going to move into a previous test map. It's not Secluded Grove, that's a lie. It's Jagged Maw here with MaNa up 1. And this is such a cool map. As we can see, we're gonna get a single vault opening coming out from MaNa here early on. No attempts at getting a really quick shrine, a really quick natural. Not gonna happen at the moment. It's just gonna be a vault opening. We're gonna go from there. But this is a cool map. So there are 2 paths across the map. It really is a man. If I could remember the name of StarCraft maps at all, I'd be really happy. I'm never good at it. But maybe an Arena is a good example. So you have a long distance by the ground on the right side. As we're kind of taking a look at the siege camps right now. You have a long distance on the long side of the map, but small units. So Brutes can't get through, Fiends can, Exos can, Lancers can, I think. There's a short path on the right side. There's a direct path through air. And there are rocks, equivalent of trees that we saw get taken down in the last game. There are rocks you can take down that really cut things short through the middle of the map. So it means that maybe this siege camp. So, other thing we got to talk about, this is a map where camps matter more. First of all, you get a resource camp really accessible to you. Your first brute can take it, your first lancer can take it, same idea. Which is really nice. Brutes, they take certain camps really well. They take resource camps really nicely as TLO looks for the jack, but is not really going to find it. Ideally, he gets enough damage between the scout getting damage done and the camp doing damage to the brute that he's going to force a split. He's going to force the fiends into, he's going to force the brute into fiends, which means that, yeah, they're powerful and they may kill the dog, but remember the dog is free. He gets a solid scout off, and these fiends are doomed to death now. They will die eventually. There was a time when fiends would just live infinity, and there were builds that were just all about building as many fiends as possible and running them across the map. In the early game, that's not a thing as much anymore. But what is important about getting these fiends, what is important to talk about, is that they kill some of the creep camps better than others. It's a triple vault opening. MaNa, he said, yeah, TLO, you can play your game 1. I'm not going to let you do it in game 2. We're going to fight you here in game 2. We're going to go aggressive in game 2. We're going to contest this natural in game number 2. Which is really interesting, because that's not totally how it was played in the beta for the most part. It was a lot of 3-base play. It was a lot of, actually, we didn't see a lot of Jagged Maw in the beta because it wasn't the ladder map. But it was a lot of 3-base play for the most part. Expand play, and then you got hedgehogs fighting, and on the other hand, as these fiends will eventually expire, they're going to try to get some damage done, but they should not get that. No, okay, they will not get the bob. And there's the repair. But eventually, we saw they will expire. It's like 1% of their HP per second, so they last 100 seconds before they go bye-bye. If they're sitting on Shroud, they regain white health at 1 HP per second, so they just kind of stick it where they are. But point being, as we talk about this map, so the siege camps are really important. They tend to be, you take those down, you get a catapult. It's effectively a mini Atlas that you can push through the middle of the map. It'll pretty much follow your units, so you can do some funky things with body blocking it to get them out when you want to go for. But MaNa's got 6 fiends, 3 brutes running across the map here out of this triple vault opening. He's going to try to get as much damage as possible early on, start the snowball. Nice surround on the Lancer, but as we can see, the Lancer, even with 6 fiends attacking, it doesn't take a ton of damage. It's actually pretty hard for the fiend to fight, but fiends are going to find some bobs on the right side or on the left side. They're going to delay this third base for just a little bit. And we take a look at our rally, though. These fiends, they do a ton of damage to structure, so you want to be very careful that you don't lose the third base. But if we take a look at our rally here, we are seeing what looks like brutes made 3 at a time, getting ready for the middle of the map, and I think, no guarantees, but I would not be surprised to see somewhat of a catapult push coming out of MaNa in this game number 2. And yeah, there we go. So he's going to have 3 brutes running down into the pit, a couple more on the edge, I guess. Oh, no, he's going to time it out. Okay, very cool. So he's got 3 brutes on the right side. He's got other brutes on the left side. He's going to turn the brutes on the right side into fiends at the very last second, although there's some balancing act there because, of course, on the flip side, fiends maintain whatever white health the brutes had. So if you have white health, it's a little bit awkward. Anyways, he's going to go, and he's got more fiends on the way as the brutes take the vision camp in the middle, run onto the other side, and they're going to try to dive into the natural. But again, there's a Lancer there. It's plugging the gap. It's really going to be hard for MaNa to get too much done here. But now as the Lancer leaves a little bit, that's going to be a dead Lancer. And eventually these fiends are going to get cleaned up. But it's bought so much map control for MaNa. He's able to go and get the vision camp in the middle. Although he didn't actually take the upgrade. He didn't actually take the vision. He just took the money from it. That allowed these brutes to get onto the other side of the map, where they're going to get some more worker harassment done. Except that one died. MaNa not paying attention quite enough. And we see just how powerful. These the overcharged bobs are. They are very, very strong, and they made me very sad in earlier tests because you just couldn't get any damage done. Now, that's not how everything happens, of course, and it's a little bit more fair, but that was pain in the pre-alpha. Anyways, yeah, you would get so far ahead in games, and then you just couldn't end it. That has changed now, but of course, Stratstone now taking out the resource camp level 2, getting a little bit more Luminite. MaNa's got his third base, that linear third. It's a double Therium on the north side, so he's got three Luminite, 3 Therium, which is not a given. To be totally honest, it's not a given. We saw in Secluded Grove, the safer expand doesn't give you that third Therium, which is a bit of a problem as we talk about where Infernals players want to be in the mid game, where they want to get into this Mascot Magmadon type of composition, and just, again, waves and waves and waves. So MaNa, he got some damage done. He killed a Lancer or so. He got, I think, 2 or 3 bobs, which are significant. It does, you don't have as many workers for full saturation, so killing one of them is a little bit more efficient. But like I say, now we're going to start to see that siege camp go forward. And by the way, as we get into this, should point out, there's no real model yet. It's a gray box, or I guess a red box catapult. This gets a little awkward right now because TLO is moving on the map as this catapult camp gets taken. And TLO would love to be able to fight against this, but there's a Shroud Stone, there's a meat farm here. And yeah, the meat farm will go down, the Fellhogs will fall, but they're enough defense for now. And now, MaNa, not only does he have a catapult to attack with, he's got a catapult to defend with. This is a lot of power that MaNa now has on the field that TLO should be able to dodge for the most part. I do like the counterattack from that perspective. It is going to slow things down. It's going to force MaNa to take maybe some fights he doesn't want to. It knocks a meat farm down, knocks a Shroud Stone down. And I do like TLO being as active on the map as he is, but the problem, there's a reason that everyone went Hedgehogs, or as Paradoxical calls it, the Hybrid Hellion Cyclone. And for those of you that are curious how it works, by the way, again, they have 4 shots, they fire them all, they have to recharge. So they're not good if they're really, kind of like a Cyclone, I guess. They're not good if they're shoved into a wall, but they are good if you're able to kite, if you're able to keep your opponent on their side of the map. So I like what we're seeing TLO do here, take fights on multiple sides, really trying hard to bait this catapult out because, again, while it doesn't do friendly fire, it's uncontrollable. So TLO fighting forwards and backwards, brutes on the right side, don't fight against Lancers all that well. It really, oh man, that's a massive catapult shot though. It really does feel like, A, you need Brute Gaunt Magmadon or something, or you need an Infest spell. Cars, exactly. Cars. That's the name of the game. That's how Vanguards want to play. As we see a Shadow Flyer here, that's the bat-like thing that we see from all the cinematics. It's not modeled yet. If you want to think about that, think of them like as Spriggans are added in here as well. This is a really powerful push. This time, though, there are some Exos on the map. There's a little bit more anti-air, but the Sentinel Post is not ready. And we're looking at like 2 Exos versus 4 Spriggans. And by the way, if Spriggans hit something, it's a massive Infest goes down here as well. But it looks like TLO, despite the Infest and lack of anti-air for the most part, at least he's going to deal with the ground army, assuming he doesn't take too many massive catapult shots. But again, the problem is these Spriggans on the air, not only do they do damage, not only are they fighting units, they significantly diminish attack speed. So Exos, you need a lot of them. You need that double time so they can make something happen. And adding on the I cannot remember that. Are they medtechs? I think they're medtechs. Adding on the medtechs makes a big difference here because these units are not just going to get slowly whittled down by infesting over and over again. That's a big deal. But the problem we're talking about here is, realistically, this army that TLO has is not good. And not in this test. We're gonna have a speed zone as well, so everything moves a little bit faster, better surrounds. Now the Spriggans got to be careful. Double time has been upgraded on the Exos, so when they're attacking, they attack faster. And TLO is actually also gonna get the speed zone, so that's gonna be nice. The problem is this army is squishy as hell. It really is not good. Not with the Infest spell, not with Magmadons on top. You add the medtechs and it makes life a little bit easier, certainly. But this army is not particularly good. It's going to have to be a fighting retreat coming out of TLO as the Magmadon looks for the explode. Doesn't quite get it. But again, this army is just, theoretically, it's a lot better coming out of MaNa, but the supply is just not there yet, I guess. Some Magmadons go down, Brutes go down. We're going to see the Shroud Stone go down here, and MaNa continues to get pushed back. Continues to get forced back off this position that he would like to mine. Really the last base that he could reasonably take easily. But here comes the big surround, and all the Lancers, for the most part, well, they're A, not in position, but B, they're very, very low. So you dive on top, and everything, theoretically is going to go down with the Magmadon splashing on top. Yes, absolutely. TLO, I liked the move up until the point he tried to dive on top of the base. At this point, Magmadons, they dash in, they do damage there. Every third attack does an AoE damage. You drop an Infest on top here. Well, Fiends do a ton of damage as well, and all of a sudden, this army, this promising idea that we saw coming out of TLO, it's gone. Totally gone, and that's the problem. We can see that it does a lot of damage. It can do damage, absolutely. But not at the moment. Not if you get trapped in a corner. Not if you got Magmadons to the face. And also, this is pretty cool. We got the Doombringer. Wait, we got the Doombringer on the map. Now, the Doombringer, a little bugged. You got to make sure it's on a separate hotkey because you can't attack move if it's deployed, but it is the dropship. And MaNa is able to deal with the bugs well enough. It's the Infernal dropship. What it does is, first of all, when it drops down, everything in it gets unloaded, and it spreads Shroud on top, which of course is important because what Shroud does, it gives you white health. It gives a lot more effective HP to this army. So MaNa's added them in, not as a dropship, although that would be useful, but he's just doing it to make his army that much tankier, that much more powerful on the front lines. You could do this with the Shroud Stone, but Shroud Stones have to build. And we see he's adding in Weavers as well, which consensus were maybe not the meta builds, but you can abduct them. As now we're going to see all the Fiends go to town. And yeah, there's the saw blade gun, certainly, but that Sentinel post goes down very quickly. Mass Infest on everything. And MaNa's willing to say, yeah, I'm going to lose this army because my Fiends will eventually time out, but I'm going to get a really positive trade. I'm going to get a significant amount of Animus. I'm going to kill your Lancers on the backside. And my brutes will continue to rally. My brutes will continue to do what they need to do. Although it looks like... No, okay, he did. He didn't do the thing where you accidentally select your entire army and then manage to turn them all into Fiends, and you're very sad. I've done that many, many times. But anyway, I love the addition of the Weaver here. It's such a nice way to just build value over time. Yeah, they're incredibly slow, but they don't take a lot of damage from a lot of the Vanguard units. And if you're just sitting there, this aggressive position, and you want to slowly win the fight over time, abduct the Vulcans, abduct Lancers, maybe get good surrounds, it's gonna work out really nicely for you. As again, the Weaver's tank, it's 750 HP, and it doesn't have the damage type that means it takes a lot of damage either. For example, Magmadons, I want to say they're armored units. They're the equivalent. They take a lot. They take tons of bonus damage coming on out from the... As we can see just how powerful that the Exo and the Sentinel turret is, by the way. Tons of damage, tons of splash damage, but it's just not enough. The Magmadon takes bonus damage from Vulcan, or from Hedgehogs. Do a really nice job of that. They shred them. Weavers aren't like that. They don't have the armored tag. They just live much longer in them. So we can see these fights. Yeah, for the most part, the army of the Vanguard player is somewhat surviving, but every single time Infest gets dropped, Gaunts pop their upgrade, which means they move faster, and they also splash damage and do Infest. This army, you really need the medtechs, and you need more than there are, and I think more importantly, you need some of the medtech upgrades. You need the ability to drop an AoE heal on the Vulcans that heals a little bit more than just the basic medtech. You need the ability to purge debuffs in an area, which is the tier 3 upgrade. So the medtech doing what it can, healing as much as it can, but at this point, the army of MaNa is just too damn strong. And he's going to show us that, yeah, he is really good. There's a reason that I want to say he was on top 5 or something on the ladder before this. And TLO is going to be forced to tap out. MaNa, he wins the first best of 3, the first ever professional best of 3 for Stormgate. And honestly, he makes it look really good.